You wake up, get dressed, go to work, talk to the people around you. You look into their eyes, hear their words, observe their gestures. But Gurdjieff would ask you a disturbing question. Is anyone really home? Or are you surrounded by empty shells, unconscious automatons running invisible programs? Gurdjieff did not soften his words. He stated something shocking. Most human beings are not awake. They believe, they think, they choose, they live. But in truth, they are sleeping deeply, even with their eyes open. They are biological machines operated by habits, conditioning, and automatic reactions. You may have immediately rejected this idea. After all, how could I be sleeping if I'm here, conscious, making decisions? In the next few minutes, you will be invited to look at something we rarely observe: the invisible mechanics that govern 97% of human existence. You will learn why Gurdjieff considered humanity asleep, how to identify the signs of sleep in yourself, and what it truly means to awaken. Because perhaps you are not who you think you are. And perhaps that is exactly what you need to discover.
Gurdjieff observed that human beings live under a fundamental illusion. We believe we possess a unified self, a coherent will, a continuous consciousness. But this is fantasy. Said we don't have one self, we have thousands. At each moment, a different personality takes control. The self that promises to wake up early is not the same one that turns off the alarm in the morning. The self that swears to change life is not the same one that repeats the old patterns the following week. Imagine a house where there is no owner, only a crowd of servants, each believing they are the master when in command. One servant decides the house will be clean, another decides it will be messy. A third wants silence, a fourth wants a party. There is no unity, only chaos disguised as normalcy. This is the human condition, according to Gurdjieff. We are a house without a master, governed by contradictory impulses that alternate in power. You can test this right now. Try to observe your thoughts for just 1 minute. Don't control, just observe. What happens? They wander. They jump from one subject to another without your command. Memories arise without invitation. Emotions appear without clear reason. Gurdjieff would say, this is not the behavior of someone awake. It is the functioning of a machine executing its circuit, with no one truly present at the control. Gurdjieff identified different manifestations of the human sleep state. Each one is an invisible prison, a form of absence disguised as presence.
First, the sleep of identification. This is the state where you completely lose yourself in what is happening. Someone criticizes you and you don't observe the anger, you become the anger. You don't have emotion, you are the emotion. Gurdjieff saw this everywhere. People totally absorbed by their moods, their opinions, their dramas. They cease to be witnesses of their lives and become prisoners of it. Identification is the forgetting of oneself. Second, the sleep of internal considering. Here you live obsessed with what others think of you. Every word you say, every gesture you make is calculated to produce an impression. You become a permanent actor, forgetting who you are behind the mask. Gurdjieff observed that this type of sleep consumes massive psychic energy. People spend their entire lives not living, but managing images, performing versions of themselves for imaginary audiences. Third, the sleep of mechanicalness. Have you ever driven home and don't remember the trip? Have you ever eaten an entire meal without tasting the flavor? Have you ever talked to someone without really listening? This is mechanicalness, existential autopilot. Gurdjieff said most people live 95% of their lives in this state. They don't inhabit their bodies, don't feel their emotions, don't observe their thoughts. They just repeat patterns recorded decades ago. Fourth, the sleep of negative imagination. This is perhaps the most destructive. You create horrible scenarios that never happened. You anticipate rejections, failures, catastrophes. Your mind becomes a theater of waking nightmares, and you consume your vital energy feeding ghosts. Gurdjieff saw this as a psychological addiction, a form of self-torture that people practice compulsively, without realizing they are doing this to themselves. But why do we continue sleeping? Gurdjieff had a radical answer: because sleep is comfortable. Being awake requires effort, attention, responsibility. When you are sleeping, you can blame others, you can be a victim, you can live in fantasies. Awakening means seeing the naked truth. You are responsible. You choose, even when you believe you don't choose. Gurdjieff described psychological mechanisms he called buffers, internal devices that protect our self-image from any contradictory information. You consider yourself kind, but act with cruelty? The buffer justifies. You see yourself as intelligent, but act foolishly? The buffer rationalizes. These mechanisms keep you sleeping because they prevent real self-perception. They are guards of the prison of unconsciousness. And the surrounding culture reinforces all of this. We live in a civilization built to keep people sleeping. Infinite entertainment, constant distractions, comforting narratives. Gurdjieff observed that societies don't want awakened individuals. They want predictable consumers, obedient workers, controllable citizens. The system is not a conspiracy. It is simply composed of sleeping people managing other sleeping people. But all is not lost. Gurdjieff also taught that it is possible to wake up. And the first step is to recognize that you are sleeping. This seems simple, but it is revolutionary. Because the moment you admit you are sleeping, something changes. A small part of you begins to observe. Gurdjieff proposed a central exercise, remembering oneself. This means at any moment dividing your attention. Part of it on what you are doing, part of it on you doing. You don't just wash the dishes, you observe yourself washing the dishes. You don't just feel anger, you witness the anger arising in you. This is the key, creating an inner witness, a presence that does not identify with the flow of experience. Nothing happens by itself. Gurdjieff was clear: awakening requires intentional effort. You must fight against the gravity of habit, against the inertia of mechanicalness. He prescribed small voluntary shocks, small acts that break the routine. Using the opposite hand. Changing the route home. Doing something unexpected. Why? Because change forces presence. Novelty demands consciousness. Most things in our lives simply happen. Thoughts happen. Emotions happen. Reactions happen. But awakening means beginning to do, not letting things simply happen. You don't wait for motivation to appear, you act. You don't wait for the right mood, you choose. This is the difference between a machine and a conscious being. Machines react. Conscious beings respond. Gurdjieff taught that human beings exist at different levels of development. Most live in what he called man number 1, 2, or 3, people governed by instincts, emotions, or thoughts, respectively, but all still sleeping. There exists, however, the possibility of evolving. This is the person who has begun to wake up. They recognize their sleep and work intentionally against it. They are not yet fully awake, but no longer completely asleep. There are moments of real consciousness, glimpses of genuine presence. The work now is to sustain these moments, expand these glimpses into longer periods of attention. At higher levels, according to Gurdjieff, the human being develops a permanent self. No longer a crowd of contradictory selves, but a unified center of consciousness. This being is no longer thrown from one side to another by moods and circumstances. They have real will, not just passing desires. They consciously choose who to be. Very few reach this state, but the possibility exists. And here is the paradox. You cannot force awakening. But you also cannot wait for it to simply happen. It is like physical sleep. You cannot force yourself to sleep, but you can create the conditions for sleep to come. The same with awakening. You create the conditions: attention, effort, self-remembering, and something greater can emerge. So how does this translate into daily life? Gurdjieff offered practical guidance. First practice: observe automatic reactions. Today, choose a recurring situation. Perhaps how you react when interrupted, or when criticized. Just observe. Don't try to change. Just see the machine functioning. See the pattern repeating. This observation, without judgment, is already the beginning of awakening. Because the machine does not observe itself. Only consciousness observes. Second practice: break a small habit. Choose something trivial. If you always drink coffee in the morning, drink tea. If you always sit in the same place, sit in another. Why? Because habits are rails of sleep. When you break a habit, even a small one, you force presence. And presence is the opposite of sleep. Third practice: divide your attention. During a common activity, cooking, walking, working, practice being simultaneously conscious of what you are doing and of you doing it. Feel your body. Observe your thoughts. Witness your emotions. This is self-remembering, and it is one of the most powerful trainings that Gurdjieff left. Here is the truth that Gurdjieff wanted you to discover. You don't need to continue being an empty shell. Unconsciousness is not your permanent nature. It is only your current state. Within you exists the possibility of real presence, of genuine consciousness, of an authentic self. But no one can do this for you. No guru, no book, no system. Only you can remember yourself. Only you can observe your sleep. Only you can choose to wake up, moment by moment, choice after choice, until awakening is no longer an effort, but your natural state. So, the next time you catch yourself on autopilot, lost in identification, absorbed in imaginary worries, pause, breathe, and ask, am I here? Really here? This question, asked with sincerity, can change everything. Because the empty shell begins to fill. The automaton begins to awaken. And you discover something extraordinary. You were here all along. Just asleep. And now, in this moment, if you are truly present, reading these words, feeling your breath, conscious of being conscious, then you have already begun. Awakening is not a distant destination. It is this instant, repeated, again and again, until it becomes who you truly are.